Welcome, everyone, as we embark on a magical journey to a tale as old as time. This time, however, brought to life on the Broadway stage. Disney's Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast is a Disney stage musical with music by Alan Menken, lyrics by Howard Ashman and Tim Rice, and a book by Linda Wolverton. The musical tells the story of an unkind prince who has been magically transformed into an unsightly creature as punishment for his selfish ways. To revert into his true human form, the beast must learn to love a bright, beautiful young lady who has been imprisoned in his enchanted castle before it's too late. After Walt Disney's death in December of 1966, his animated films continued to experience a noticeable decline in quality while struggling to attain critical and commercial success during the 1970s and 80s. It was then in 1984 when Michael Eisner was hired as CEO of the Walt Disney Company in order to ensure the performance of the studio's next animated projects, despite having virtually no animation experience. However, being a theater major in college, Eisner actually was not at first on board with turning Beauty and the Beast into a Broadway musical. So, it was up to the songwriting duo of Howard Ashman and Alan Menken to develop one of Disney's biggest animated movies into a live stage musical. In 1989, the Walt Disney Company established a successful Renaissance period during which Ashman and Menken became responsible for teaching the art of transforming traditional animated films into animated musicals. Beauty and the Beast's fairy tale began shortly afterward, but not before Howard Ashman would unfortunately die of AIDS in March of 1991, 8 months before the film's release in November of that year. Not only would Beauty and the Beast be the last project for Ashman and Menken, but the film was released to immediate critical acclaim and commercial success, outperforming The Little Mermaid by becoming the highest grossing animated film in history, as well as the first animated film to be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture. Several critics noticed the film's live musical potential, including New York Times theater critic Frank Rich, who famously praised the songwriting duo for having written the best musical score of 1991, while hailing the film as a better musical than anything he had seen on Broadway to date. Rich's review would ultimately provide Eisner with the confidence needed to seriously consider the film as a potential Broadway project. Disney was also inspired by the successes of Broadway's musicals such as Cats, Les Miserables, and The Phantom of the Opera, strongly believing their production could be just as profitable. It was soon known to Linda Wolverton that Disney had officially commissioned her to adapt the animated musical she had written into a Broadway musical while she was vacationing with her family in Maui, and her initial response to the idea was yikes. Well, in the process of adapting her own animated screenplay into a full-length two-act libretto for the stage, Wolverton contributed several distinct changes to the material, specifically instilling more emotional depth into each main character. Wolverton made the Beast a more threatening yet sympathetic figure, expanding upon his characterization by developing the Beast into a fuller character, aided by the addition of his own song, If I Can't Love Her. Meanwhile, the book-loving Belle was adapted into a more headstrong and determined heroine. Perhaps Wolverton's most significant modification involves the enchanted objects and the decision to have the Enchantress spell gradually transform the castle staff of loyal servants into household objects throughout the entire duration of the musical, as opposed to having already done so immediately at the beginning of the film. This plot decision enhanced the story into a tale about people being forced to make difficult decisions, as opposed to solely a story of a man struggling to retain his humanity, in turn, providing the audience with an opportunity to care about the supporting characters in a more dramatic way. Now, Stanley Meyer designed the production's set, following Disney's instructions to make the animated film come to life. Meyer's set was very much a literal interpretation of the film, finding it actually most tricky to translate two-dimensional environments into a three-dimensional world. For example, the West Wing's appearance mirrors that of its resident, the Beast, being hideous on the outside, but actually beautiful when the audience is finally taken inside of it. Disney then hired costume designer Anne Ward to design the musical's costumes because the studio enjoyed a certain aesthetic she had used in her previous work, and thus allowed her much creative freedom. She initially accepted Disney's offer because she was interested in seeing exactly how a corporate company producing a Broadway musical for the first time would forever change the Broadway landscape. Anne researched clothing worn throughout the 18th century, even going as far as spending 1 year discovering how household items looked during the mid 1700s. She also visited with Beauty and the Beast's original animators, learning how they created their characters to ensure that they would be recognizable to those who had seen the film. After getting initial designs approved, Anne and her team spent 2 years creating prototypes of each costume, which wasn't actually the norm in a Broadway musical at the time. It was in April of 1994 that audiences were treated to a spectacle like never seen before. When Beauty and the Beast would finally open its doors at the Palace Theater, later transferring to the Lunt-Fontanne in November of 1999, running for a grand total of 5,461 performances, starring actress, singer, and dancer Susan Egan, film, theater, and television actor Terrence Mann, stage and soap opera actor Burke Moses, former stage, film, and television actor Gary Beach, and two-time Tony nominee Beth Fowler. The production not only became the 10th longest running musical in Broadway history at the time, but also became the most costly Broadway musical, costing an estimated $20 million. By December of 1996, a special ice show adaptation was broadcast on CBS known as Disney's Beauty and the Beast: A Concert on Ice. The special featured songs from the musical and starred four-time world Olympic figure skater Ekaterina Gordieva, former Ukrainian competitive figure skater Viktor Petrenko, and retired American figure skater and Olympic gold medalist Scott Hamilton. By April of 1997, Beauty and the Beast would ask the audiences of London's Dominion Theatre to be their guest, starring Burke Moses reprising his role of Gaston from the 1994 Broadway production, as well as British actor, singer, and voice artist Derek Griffiths, former actress and singer Mary Millar, actor and singer Barry James, and Welsh actress Diane Botcher. The production would go on to win the 1998 Olivier Award for Best New Musical. Beauty and the Beast has also been performed in more than 40 different countries, seen by over 35 million people, and grossed more than $1.7 billion. Largely due to audience reception, Beauty and the Beast remains one of Broadway's biggest successes of the current era. Beauty and the Beast established itself as a musical that could survive on Broadway despite its unenthusiastic reviews. Several detractors had thought that musicals like Beauty and the Beast would be a one-time event, but the results ultimately turned out to be quite the opposite. According to theatrical producer Stuart Oken, Disney's success with Beauty and the Beast is responsible for today's biggest Broadway hits and making the medium better than it has ever been. In fact, the success of Beauty and the Beast even inspired Eisner to invest in his own theater to house future stage adaptations of the studio's animated classics. Well, folks, Beauty and the Beast reminds us that appearances can be deceiving, and that kindness and acceptance can break even the strongest of curses. Remember, even the darkest of beasts can find redemption, and the most ordinary life can hold extraordinary adventures, as long as you keep believing in the magic of Beauty and the Beast.